It's Fed Day. Their rate decision and statement will be out 2:15. We're not expecting any changes in the outlook, but how much longer will we remain these exceptionally low levels? Let's ask David Resler of Nomura Securities, who's a Bloomberg Best, second most accurate forecaster for inflation, number 3 when it comes to growth. Welcome to InBusiness, David. We don't expect a change. Should there be one?
No, I don't think so. I think the outlook remains fairly much the same as it was a month ago. Things have improved. It looks like we're on a moving into a sustainable growth trajectory, but considerable uncertainty around that. The uncertainty of most recent vintage before this last weekend's events in Tokyo or in Japan have been largely centered on uncertainties arising from commodity prices and what that might do to the outlook. So that's another of the many headwinds that we've confronted over the last few years, and that's likely to get some mention in terms of affecting the outlook.
All right. Well, what we saw on the fuel front, at least, some of that reflected in the import prices today for February.
Yes, import prices considerably higher than they had been. That's a direct feed-through of higher oil prices into a range of imported prices, but particularly petroleum. There's not a great deal of pass-through from that into consumer prices, a point that Mr. Bernanke made quite clear in his testimony 2 weeks ago, as have other Fed officials over recent weeks.
You know, David, arguably the world has changed tremendously since just on Friday when we saw this earthquake, the tsunami, and now this nuclear, potentially disaster in Japan. The Bank of Japan has taken some extraordinary measures, pumped tremendous amount into their economy thus far. What kind of follow-through will there be? Do you expect any kind of global action to contain worry?
Well, I think that the central banks outside of Japan, the U.S., the ECB, and so on, will probably stand ready to make sure that there's adequate liquidity within the financial system, should that be a problem. I don't see or hear much evidence that it's a problem yet. Could it be down the road? Perhaps. But it'd be akin to the kinds of actions that the central banks collectively took a couple years ago after the financial crisis. But it doesn't seem to me to require that kind of commitment yet. But I think they'll remind us all that they're ready to do that if necessary. And here I'm talking about swap lines and the like.
Swap lines and the like. You expect a nod, at least an acknowledgement towards it in the FOMC statement this afternoon?
Not likely in the statement. I think if the statement reflects anything about what's happened in Japan over the weekend, it will be in the context of an additional element of uncertainty affecting the outlook. So it could appear in some kind of mention in the first paragraph, but I wouldn't expect it to appear elsewhere in the statement.
Treasury Secretary Geithner just moments ago giving some statements before the Senate saying he doesn't expect the Japan disaster to affect interest rates or Treasury prices, and Japan's a rich country that can deal with its reconstruction challenge. Yet it is a global economy, yet it is the third largest in the world. Is it really that easily contained?
Well, I think that Geithner's right in the sense that it's not likely to have a big impact on lasting impact on the path of U.S. interest rates or the path of U.S. economic activity. As we're looking at what kinds of feed-through effects it might have on the rest of the world economy outside of Japan, if anything, it might be a very slight positive to offset the negative that's going to hit Japan directly. Our team of economists in Tokyo are estimating that the loss of GDP over calendar year 2011 will be on the order of 3 or 4/10%. I think those are estimates that are in flux all the time. They're changing constantly, and my own guess is that they might go a little higher. But remember that the loss of output in Japan is likely to be made up elsewhere.
Yeah. David Resler, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
One of the most accurate forecasters we track here at Bloomberg.